The greatest legal risk most school districts face isn't a headline grabbing lawsuit, it's the hidden non compliance between the accommodations they promise and the ones kids actually receive. Every year, IEPs, 504s, gifted plans, and ELL supports are drafted with surgical precision. Central office teams feel triumphant, and the parents, they breathe a bit easier. Then those beautifully written plans travel down the hallway and they vanish under the weight of crowded classrooms, new curricula, and overworked teachers. This is what we mean when we talk about hidden noncompliance. When accommodations live only on paper, everyone loses. Students miss the supports they're legally entitled to, teachers pile on guilt and burnout, and districts gamble millions in potential settlements, often without even knowing they're out of compliance. Today's guest built a tool that collapses this compliance gap to 10 seconds and a single click, restoring instructional integrity and giving teachers back the one resource they can't afford to lose, their time. Stick around and hear how hidden noncompliance becomes visible and solvable when technology meets a teacher's heart. I'm Danny Bauer, and this is Better Leaders, Better Schools, the original Ruckus cast for innovative school leaders who want to do school different, even within a traditional setting, so that you create a campus experience worth showing up for. Because of Ruckus makers just like you, this show ranks in the top 1% of all shows worldwide. That's nearly 4 million podcasts. So thank you for pressing play and for being a loyal listener. Today, my guest is Sam Feeney. He's a former classroom teacher, school counselor, and administrator turned founder of Accommodate.live. It's a platform that transforms any lesson or assessment into student-specific accommodations for IEP, ELL, and gifted learners at the push of a button. So once again, thanks for listening, and we'll be right back after a message from our show sponsors. Over 1 million teachers rely on IXL because it's empowering. It helps them make better decisions with reliable data, and it adapts instruction based on student performance. Get started today at ixl.com/leaders. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Expressability. They are building AI tools that actually make school leadership easier. From secure AI-powered chatbots to time-saving automation, they're helping districts work smarter, not just harder. Want to be your district's hero? Visit K12ability.com. That's K12ability.com. Want to know how top schools create collaborative learning environments that actually work? ODP Business Solutions has equipped innovative educators for over 3 decades. Visit odpbusiness.com/education and let's make a ruckus together. All right, and Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Danny. Great to be here.
Yeah, we've known each other for a while now, and I don't remember how this started. I know there was a message that popped into my inbox, and just an invitation to collaborate. So I was like super pumped for that. And then you started telling me what you're working on, and here we are. So, yeah, Ruckus Maker. Today's show, I got my buddy Sam here from Accommodate.live, and it's a really cool tool. And I've been supporting him a little bit behind the scenes, but this is his baby, and I think it's something that you'd be really interested to hear about what it does. And I think where I want to start is the problem you solve, because when it comes to a podcast or content, and this is a leadership lesson too for the Ruckus Maker listening or watching, right? A lot of times they think, ooh, my background, pedigree, or this new initiative, or something I'm bringing from this old school to this new campus, it's going to change everything. That all might be true, but nobody cares.
Yes.
Nobody cares, right?
But
What they care about is themselves, and the great Zig Ziglar, motivational speaker and just really encouraging mind, he said everybody's favorite radio station was WII.FM. What's in it for me? So I want to start with the problem we solve, because that tells the listener, the watcher, the ruckus maker, what's in it for them. And we have a fun name too, right? So I think it's hidden non-compliance. So I've queued you up. Tell us about that problem.
Yeah, well, I just want to extend that thought for a second about the leadership. I think the leadership principle that's part of this, and that it's something that I've operated under probably unknowingly for a long time, but that is that need equals permission. And so if you're somebody who feels like you're a ruckus maker, or you feel like you're a leader, but you don't have the quote unquote pedigree or diplomas or whatever, the need is that you see is the permission to go do that. And so that's actually a lot of the ethos behind Accommodate, is that I saw a need and I was fully aware that the need was outside of my particular area of expertise, but that was enough for me to get the ball rolling. And so anyway, just to encourage people who are listening to think, man, I've always wanted to, crack this nut, or this has always been something that I've heard before, a term of holy discontent. This is always a thing that's kind of bothered me, but I feel like I want to do something about. And that's all you need. That's it. That recognition or that awareness is your permission to go tackle that. And so that's kind of what we did with Accommodate. Basically, I was a classroom teacher for a long time, school counselor for a long time, and then administrator now. And so often served in that LEA position of being around special education, being around, complicit in sometimes even creating plans, never an expert on it, but just around it enough. And often saw where these plans are made, but then what we might call instructional integrity was never really carried through. And as often happens, an arm's length problem became personal to me when a number of my children, actually, I have 5 kids, and 3 of them have been identified gifted, which is 100% credit to their mom and nothing to do with me. But I started talking to the gifted and talented teacher at their school about how she provided enhanced lessons and services and all that. And she said, that's honestly, beyond identification, that's probably the hardest part of my job, is how to enhance the, out of the box curriculum that they've been given by their school. And that really just got me noodling on this problem, this need. And that's how Accommodate was born. It was what I recognize as a professional problem that, maybe shame on me, it didn't really become something that I wanted to work on until it became my problem with my own kids.
Yeah, and you're talking about, the gifted and talented, and I know that Accommodate helps and supports, English language learners as well. But, the thing that I'm really excited about is how it serves, students in the special ed program also. And for me, I don't know that we talked too much about hidden non-compliance yet. So I'm going to ask that question again. For me, in our discussions building Accommodate, I think districts probably do a really nice job creating accommodations for their students, whether it's special ed, gifted, English language learners, that kind of thing. On paper, it's done really well, right? And they have confidence, right? Mm-hmm. The central office, we've met, we put in the hard work. On paper, it's done so well. Then those accommodations are shipped, to the campus. If they're not writing them themselves, even if they are, the classroom happens. And with the stresses and the ways that teachers are pulled in a million different directions, are the accommodations happening in reality? So on paper, looks good. In reality, maybe not. In districts, campuses, they get sued, because they're breaking the law. They're not providing what they promised that family, for example. So what else do you want to add, to the idea of hidden non-compliance?
Yeah, I think it's something that in this whole journey of creating Accommodate has given me a lot of opportunity for reflection on my own practice as a teacher, and then as a school counselor, and then now as an administrator, and really coming to this awareness of the handoff of trust that happens. It's somewhere between a handoff of trust and willful blindness, frankly, of you have some people who are very, very good at supporting students with individual education plans, IEPs, our English language learners as well, our gifted and talented kids. The plans, as you said, that box is checked with true confidence that, hey, if this plan is carried out, this is going to help this kid.
Right.
And then there's really a huge gap between the creation of the plan and the implementation of the plan. And what we can call hidden noncompliance is sometimes, it's kind of tough in this part in time, and I don't spend a ton of time thinking about like basically whose fault is it, right? But what often happens is, in my experience, was someone who is really good at special education created a plan that fit this kid great. In my classroom, handed it to me and said, all right, provide these accommodations. And as a classroom teacher who does not have a background in special education or in English language learning or in gifted and talented, the whisper down the lane, at best, the intentions there and the implementation of the accommodation is very, very muddled. And at worst, it's, hey, this isn't, I can throw up my hands and say, this isn't my problem. And, or I don't have the professional development for it. I'm not equipped to do this. And maybe paying it lip service. And I really only think about my students' accommodations as a classroom teacher, maybe every 6 months or at an annual review or something. And I throw together something real quick. And again, that's not common. That was definitely my experience in the classroom, my experience kind of now more on the sidelines. By and large, the best laid plans are not carried out. And I'd say more problematic, Danny, than the districts who get sued are the number of districts that are just crossing their fingers and hoping that they don't. Like they're hoping they don't run into the buzzsaw of a savvy parent.
Yeah.
Or an
Somebody
advocate.
informed.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's how many district leaders are just, everybody's agreeing to not talk about this.
Yeah. My sister, I won't share too much, but she ended up hiring an advocate. And my nephew, who was really struggling and challenged at his home school where his home campus. I mean, this guy did not want to go to school. And this is the one that I'm telling you, he has math class tonight, right? He's a genius, and like he was, depressed, right? Like really dark for a young student. Like you shouldn't be having these feelings about school. Sent home all the time, administration, the parent calls, this kind of stuff. It was a hard year last year. Moves campuses, one that focuses on students that are more neurodivergent and, have some unique things going on. No calls home, never sent home, soaring in all his academic classes because they're actually doing what the paper said and being responsive to what he needs. Because I'd ask my sister, like, what's on the IEP, like, right? Like, what's happening on campus? Nope, that's not happening. This not happening. Just so frustrating, and then they're still figuring that out. But it happens, obviously harms the kid, hurts the family. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of dollars and cents that are poured into lawsuits and all this kind of stuff just because that trust gap, right? That hidden noncompliance on paper was there, but it didn't actually happen in reality. Okay, we got a problem. So accommodate, solves that problem, which I'm excited about, helps provide instructional integrity. What does that mean to you, like instructional integrity, that idea?
Yeah, I think it is the idea, if you think about it like from an architectural standpoint, the integrity of a building, right? It's an ability to do the thing that it was designed to do, really by and large. And I also recognize, I started teaching in the year 2000, and I recognize how much education has changed and what's asked of teachers now as compared to what was asked of teachers when I first began. It's wildly different, right? Especially depending on where you live, the populations
For sure.
have changed dramatically. So I'm not discounting that. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm not spending a ton of time on who to point the finger to. I'm much more of if you're going to talk about the problem, bring the solution as well, because, the blame game is never ending and nobody wins. So really thinking about instructional integrity and the task of the teacher to do more than teach, but to carry that through to student learning. And that's where really accommodations for all sorts of different types of learners, whether special education all the way through English language learners and gifted and talented. It's almost like a 360 on a lesson plan. Like the teacher stands in the center, they've got the lesson plan in mind, and then they're able to deliver it, either the lesson plan or the assessment itself, to everybody in the room. It is one of the hardest jobs I can think of.
Yeah.
We think about like if you think about someone who wants to build a business, there's usually an ideal client, right? You've got this ideal client profile. You're digging
Which you
into
could
this
kind
person.
of pick, right? You could choose to do
Right.
business with
Yes.
that person
Yes.
or not.
Yes. Right.
But
And so
public
the
education, at
teacher,
least, yeah,
yeah,
it's
you've got
tough.
26 ideal clients or whatever.
Like 23 of them are less than ideal, right? You might have
Yeah,
3
well,
ideal.
that's right. And is it a client really their parent? And then like who are your
Oh,
stakeholders
yeah,
are?
sure.
So, I mean, this is really, as much as we built this for schools and districts, it really comes down to this, like the gift I want it to be is to teachers, to say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
like we've got you here. Like we know what you've got a ton to do in your classroom. This is basically a differentiation tool for you so that everybody gets the level of attention and instructional integrity that that they deserve. And that's one thing I remember Danny Harncraft, and I hope it's okay that I use his name, but awesome kid,
Too
phenomenal.
late now.
But Danny was amazing. And I remember Danny was in my last year of teaching, and he was one of the few kids. I didn't have a ton of kids on my caseload or in my classroom who had an IEP, but I remember there were times when I would be mid lesson and think, oh crap, I forgot to
Sure.
accommodate for Danny.
That's real.
It's like,
Yeah, that
son
happens.
of a
Yeah.
gun. Like it wasn't even, so like there was almost like this part of the hidden non-compliance is just so a teacher can kind of sleep at night. Like it's not even like I'm saying, it's not even like, well, forget those guys. Like I'm going to do whatever I want to do. It is really it's not a front burner thing for a lot of teachers because they're learning a curriculum for the first time, or they've got their schools at a point where their baseline reading scores for everybody needs to be improved. And if they can move this 80%, it'll offset the 20%, so it's a lot of it. The intention is to bring attention to a problem by solving it and allowing a teacher to get back to doing what they do, which is delivering really good instruction to a ton of kids at the same time.
What I like about what you shared there is, I mean, obviously it's going to save the district, the campus, tons of money because they'll actually have that instructional integrity and do what they promise to do.
Yeah.
But even more important than that, right? For the teacher, you're giving them the gift of time, right? And so whether it's sleeping at night, hanging out with friends or family, or just creating a little bit more space and margin in their life, that's what Accommodate does, because you just press
it
a
is
button.
basically an insurance policy for your district.
Yeah.
Against getting sued, but it is also kind of almost a way to provide ongoing PD to your teachers by providing them this tool that they can use every single day for their kids.
With a press of a button. So
yeah,
we'll pause here just for a second to get some messages in from our sponsors. When we get back, I would love for you to show us a bit of what you built.
Great.
Every school leader wants to spend more time on real leadership, not resetting passwords, answering the same questions, or getting buried in admin tasks. That's where expressibility comes in. They're building secure AI-powered tools that actually work in schools, from privacy-scrubbed chatbots to automations that lift the daily load on your team. They move fast, they care about data safety, and they've got a track record of helping districts work smarter, not harder. If your staff is overloaded or your systems are stuck in 2008, Expressibility can help. Visit K12ability.com and start turning busy work to breakthrough. That's K12ability.com. ODP Business Solutions, formerly Office Depot Business Solutions Division, has been a trusted partner for schools in 30 years. At ODP Business Solutions, we're by your side to meet your evolving education needs. Here's the thing about creating remarkable learning spaces. You need a partner who gets it. Someone who understands that transforming education isn't just about swapping whiteboards for smartboards, it's about reimagining what's possible. That's why innovative school leaders trust ODP Business Solutions. We don't just deliver supplies, we help you design dynamic learning spaces that make students actually excited to show up. From tech integration that brings lessons to life to flexible furniture that transforms any space into a collaboration zone, to sustainable solutions that teach by example, we've got everything you need to do school different. And the best part, you can get it all from a single supplier. This helps you simplify ordering and streamline budgeting while staying compliant with easy access to cooperative contracts. However you want to advance, ODP Business Solutions has 30 years of experience helping districts just like yours get ahead. Visit odpbusiness.com/education to learn more. Something that drove me nuts as a ruckus maker was hearing teachers say, I taught it, they should have learned it. But really, some teachers just don't know how to reteach so that all kids get it. That's where IXL comes in. IXL's diagnostic automatically identifies knowledge gaps for teachers and provides them with a personalized growth plan for each individual student. Teachers can step into the classroom every day knowing exactly what their students know and what they don't know. IXL's adaptive platform makes differentiating instruction easy. As students learn, IXL adjusts to the right level of difficulty for each individual. Close knowledge gaps and accelerate learning at IXL. Get started today at ixl.com/leaders. All right, and we're back with Sam Feeney, and he's here to talk about Accommodate, and this is really fantastic stuff. So Sam, I'll invite you to share your screen and make sure you could show us like how does Accommodate help solve that problem of hidden noncompliance and provide instructional integrity with the press of a button.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. I appreciate it.
And just a reminder, tell us everything you're doing, because some people like, if
Yes.
Ruckus Maker, if you want to see Sam go through this, check us out on YouTube or the Ruckus Maker Substack. We'll have the videos there. But Sam will do the best he can in his baseball announcer voice, do the play-by-play in terms of, interacting with the app.
Yeah, definitely. So accommodate.live is the site that I'm scrolling through. A number of things on here. I'm just going to give you some high points so we can dive in, Danny, where you find it appropriate. But really just presenting this idea about instructional integrity and something that I think is new for education and allows everybody on the team, whether it's MTSS, special education, whatever it might be, to approach this problem in a whole new way. So there are some resources on here. What I want to highlight is obviously what Danny just ended with before the break, this idea about the cost. These are just some stats that are pulled from New York City, but they're all over. I'm in Colorado, just outside of Denver, and there are a number of districts who have had to come out of pocket for a lot of money in non-compliance. And so one thing we do right off the bat is address that to say, this is something that isn't necessarily going to be imminent for you, but it is something that's happening around you. So better to learn from your neighbor than to have to do it yourself. The thing that I really am most proud of is not only are we helping all sorts of different students with just the press of a button on a daily basis, but the team behind Accommodate is who I'm really most proud of. As I said, I don't have a special education background, but I know people who do. So that was my approach of, hey, get a great team. And so the team who has created all of these accommodations and has tested our models time and again have degrees in special education, have a lot of experience in that, are gifted and talented expert that we relied on to build those accommodations. She has her doctorate in education focused on gifted and talented education. We have 2 CLDE or ELL specialists with master's degrees in the discipline who helped us build our ELL accommodation. So those people are really the experts behind this. And every time you click accommodate and get your accommodated lesson or assessment, those are the people who are providing those accommodations for you. And so that's why I say this is almost like an ongoing PD for your teachers, is because you're having someone come alongside them and create these accommodations. And so by doing this over and over again, your teachers are actually learning how to do that themselves. It's not a complete outsourcing and like, okay, I've done this, but I don't really know what's going on with it. They're actually learning best practices in these different verticals, which I think makes not only the platform that much more effective, but it actually makes the experience for the individual teacher that much more effective as well. And so then if you want to dig into instructional integrity, we have a white paper as well. It just talks really about how that shows up in those three main verticals of IEPs, ELLs, and gifted and talented. So once you get into the site, so I'm going to go ahead and click log in, and then we jump right to it. And so what a new teacher will get to experience when they use Accommodate is we actually create all of your courses and your student classes, your caseload as well. But you can always go in and manage these things. And what we allow for, and what really separates Accommodate from a pretty antiquated practice is we go ahead and assign the accommodations to each and every student specific to whatever their learning plan is. And so if you were to go in and manage your own classes, which you're welcome to do, although we do that for you as part of our onboarding, you'd be able to choose which accommodations are going to be accommodated or going to be included in the lesson plan or the assessment. And why this is really helpful is because it allows someone, if the teacher has, let's say 10% of their students have an IEP, they're, let's say, typical classroom size and teaching load, they have between 125 and 150 students. That they no longer have to remember, let's say 15 different students' accommodations and all the different variations within. They already have their kids ready to set up. So in Accommodate, you can choose to, I'm going to accommodate an assessment or a lesson plan for an entire class. I've got my classes listed. Maybe I just have all my students listed. And so you'll see some of our students here. Abigail Adams, I was going through a little bit of a Revolutionary War kick when I build these student profiles out. But Abigail Adams has an IEP or 504. She has specific accommodations. So we have to adapt her assignment text to a 550 Lexile score. She has to have open-ended questions transformed into multiple choice questions, and we have to simplify the language in the directions in the questions. Once Abigail's student profile is created, it's always there. And so whether it's September or March, when that teacher is ready to accommodate a lesson plan, Abigail's profile is ready to go, click of a button and go. And so that's just one example of the accommodation itself based on the student profile. You have someone else, let's say George W. George Washington, he had a gifted and talented plan. So this is another student profile you can see here. His accommodation was, let's change those multiple choice questions to open-ended. Let's make that a little bit harder as we go through this. Maybe someone else just is on a read plan. Sam Adams, another founding father, he maybe just has a Lexile accommodation. And so we need to chunk his text into smaller blocks and adapt the assignment to a 550 Lexile score. So once you have all of your student profiles created, those always then exist for you. Should you come across let's say an IEP annual review, or someone, has a short-term 504 or something like that, you can always create that, and you can then adapt it as you need to. These are all very, very fluid as needed, but by and large, the work is done for the teacher when the teacher opens up Accommodate. The classes are there, the students are there, and then he or she can just go ahead and go. Danny, any questions about the setup as the new teacher comes into this?
No, it makes sense. I mean, it sounds like the Accommodate team really takes care of that. So they work with the campus, the district, to get the roster, what the accommodations are. Because again, on paper, they've made a promise and have worked that out. And then what I understand about the tool is you take those plans, map them to the kids and the classes, which your team does. then the teacher just has to remember a password, log in, and you'll show us. But, give a lesson, select your kids or the whole class, press the button, and all the accommodations, whether it's making it a bit more challenging or a bit more accessible, it just happens,
Yeah,
right?
that's correct. Yeah,
So,
I'll actually show this to you live in a second, and I'm glad that you're reflecting back the process, because one of the things that's really, really important to us is student identity safety. So
mm,
anything that's personally identifiable information, there's nothing that we do at Accommodate. Like we serve the districts and the schools, so there's no, selling of information. There's no collecting of student email addresses. When we set up this, each school and district actually can choose the way that they use their student identifier. We recommend first name and last initial just for the ease for the teacher. But some school districts may want to do student ID number or whatever it might be. But when we ask for that information, it's very straightforward. It's, first name, last initial, and then the accommodations that you are looking for from from the plans that already exist. And so once that we get that information, then we take care of the rest. And then we'll do a full PD with the teachers. It's about 2 hours to be able to make sure they get logged in, make sure they can use it, make sure get them accommodating their first few assignments for the beginning of the school year. And then we have a 24-hour response time for help with the accommodations themselves. And then I can show you even some cool things that we're doing within it as we go on. So let's say I want to do an assignment or a lesson plan. I want to go ahead and accommodate for these kids because I've got something coming up tomorrow. I've got, in this case, they're going to do a math assessment. So you can just copy and paste an assignment or assessment in this box right here. In this case, I'm going to just pull from a previously existing example, which has to do, it's a math lesson from Algebra 1. This actually comes from the pre-algebra curriculum. And I'm going to look at this. This problem has to do with electric car sales. And so there's a chart, and it talks about when electric cars were sold and how many were sold, asks to do a scatter plot, etc. We're already kind of getting out of my depth as far as math is concerned, but I think that's okay. And we can then go through and be able to see the different options that are given for this particular assignment. And so things in here about, a scatter plot, a good line of fit, a linear model, all these sorts of things. So you're going to have kids in an Algebra 1 class who have a variety of needs regarding this. And so as you go through, I'm now just going to choose the kids. So I've got this class. I'm going to choose the kids from my, let's pick my world history class, which obviously doesn't fit this example great, but I'm just going to show you that you can take all the kids in a particular course. We've got Monica who needs some Lexile help. D. Bauer, who is near and dear to the Accommodate team, is a gifted and talented accommodation. Sam, as we talked about before, has a Lexile. So when I click select all the kids in that specific class are going to get accommodations for this specific assignment. And so all I have to do then is hit the green accommodate button, and then I let our accommodation generator do its work for each specific kid. And then we can see what the outcome is for each of them. I'd say it usually takes about 8 seconds. It depends a little bit on your Wi-Fi that you're working on, but we have
it's
just in
hard to
that
spit
time.
it out. Yep.
Yep, they have it spit it out. So if we compare now, so we have Abigail with
Well,
her
compare like
eight.
what just happened. I'm gonna cut you off, but like, okay,
No,
let's just say it was 10 seconds. Let's just call
yeah.
it that. It
Oh
it
yes,
doesn't
good
matter if it was
question.
8, 10. But the point is, I want the ruckus maker listening, watching to think about when they were in the classroom or the teachers that are on their campus in the classroom, like how long does it take them, A, to write the lesson and now
Yes.
accommodate, right, for all their students based on the written plans that those students have. And what
Yeah,
Sam just
exactly.
demonstrated, right, because the team will map your class to your student roster and what your students need, you accommodate the app, your lesson, you press the button, and literally, let's just call it 10 seconds, like it's done. So, and then I guess, I mean, you're going to print it off and that kind of thing, right? So there's a little bit of legwork there, but yeah, 10 seconds and it's done.
Correct. And people who are really well versed at special education or at accommodating for CLDE or whatever, once they get into it, they can do this fairly quickly in that one vertical. But what's really difficult for the teacher is to be that quote unquote expert in all three verticals at the same time. And so there's the lift of the actual work, but there's almost this, I think what is a non-starter for a lot of teachers is the perception of what it takes. It's a lot, and thinking, man, I can't do this. And now I've got to go look up all this, and I've got to, try to remember or pull out an old textbook from college or whatever it might be to try to figure out how would I accommodate this particular lesson. And to do that night after night in prepping for the needs of their kids, it really speaks to a little bit of why it doesn't happen as often as it should. And so what we want to do with that gift of time that you mentioned is be able to not just say, hey, here's a gift of time, but also of expertise. Because the gift of time is nice, but it doesn't mean your kids are getting served. In this case, you get both through this. So we can see here the difference between the lesson that was laid out for us here, and then this is just, again, a copy and paste of this assessment. And then now if you look at, let's say, Abigail's, you can compare a side by side of the level of the instruction, right? So if you look at the electric car sales instruction here, comparing that to the instructions that were given for somebody who has a 550 Lexile score, right? And for those of you who can't see this at the time, trust me,
much
it's simplified.
Simpler. Yeah, big time, much simpler.
Right?
Yeah, things that if they're going to take multiple sentences or complex sentences, it's all straight and to the point, all the sub points that were pretty dense, that looks a lot simpler as well. And then we've gone also, I think, from open-ended to multiple choice, it looks like.
Yes. And that's what she needs, right? So a lot of the work that's done for the teacher is basically if I had an IEP like Abigail does in this case, how would I think about this problem in a way that makes it more accessible? So that is really what also I think a lot of teachers are challenged by, and a lot of districts really don't know how to address, or they don't address it holistically, is how do I give kids access to the curriculum without watering down the curriculum if they have accommodations, or for the case of someone who has, like our buddy George Washington, who might take this as a gifted and talented, maybe how do I look at that and say, okay, how can I give that person that same exact concept at a higher level, but not in a way that makes it feel like extra work? Because that's where a lot of gifted and talented kids as well are. Their teacher just is like, okay, now give them, instead of all the odds, give them all the odds and the evens. Like, okay, well, you're just making that kid work harder. You're not actually on the same exact thing. You're not actually enhancing what they're able to do.
Right.
And so
more practice.
Yeah. And so, we have an example here. Thomas Jefferson was another kid who was accommodated for this lesson. There's a word bank provided. Okay, great. That's a huge CLDE or ELL strategy in the classroom. Provide them a word bank so they kind of know give them some of those raw materials on how to tackle this as they go through it. And so the ability, I think, to cut through what is in effect 3 different master's degrees worth of knowledge or expertise in a few button clicks is the thing that makes Accommodate different than anything that the teachers may have thought that they had access to in the past. And so instead of saying, hey, we're going to try and enhance what you're currently doing, we're just doing it differently. We are trying to address a problem that a lot of teachers haven't really been able to put their finger on. And I would say, in particular, I'd say special ed directors haven't been able to put their finger on to say, all right, this is solving something that I don't think we've really named, and it does it in a way that makes it immediately applicable to our classroom teachers' lives.
So I see a little pencil icon and a copy icon. So I'm curious about 2 things. Like, one, I'm happy with the accommodations. Now as a teacher, how do I get the output? So can I download it as like a Google Doc PDF or something, or do I just click copy and paste it into, my word processor of choice? So let's start there with question 1, and then I have a second question.
Yeah. So right now we have this as a copy feature. So right now I just clicked the copy icon, and Tom's.
Okay.
Tom's has
It's
been there, pasted. Yeah, version 2, which is coming very soon, is going to have
a
some
download or
Google
something.
Drive connections, and he
Okay,
just puts it right in your Drive for you.
sweet. All right, and then the pencil, that's the edit. So if I'm happy with the 90% happy with the accommodations, but maybe I want to make some changes, what's the pencil all about?
The pencil is really fun because this is really where you get real-time interaction with the platform and us, the team of experts. So you have a pencil icon next to the copy. Go ahead and hit that pencil icon. Right away, I can rate the accommodation. So I can say, hey, this was a 5 out of 5, or this is a 1 out of 5. And I can give some feedback. So maybe I'm going to say it was a 3, like it was okay. And I'm going to type in, I was really hoping for the definitions
In the word bank?
with the
Okay.
word bank.
Yep.
Okay. So let's say that's it. So I go through, and if there's anything else that I want to change just before I copy and paste it, I can go ahead and make that happen. So maybe this sentence starter here, I want to change the sentence starter for this particular question. I can go ahead and make that change. And then I just click the little save icon up here, which is a little floppy disk from way back when. And then that is saved. And so then I can copy and paste that accommodated assignment. But more importantly, or just as importantly, is then that rating and note gets forwarded to our team, and we can then interact with the teacher directly and say, hey, thanks for this. Tell me more about this problem, or what would you like to see as an additional, maybe it's an additional accommodation or whatever it might be. So we are really, although frankly, I think the team's done a heck of a job building this, we want to have this be something that can be tailored to your specific district or specific school. So when we look at manage students and classes, and I want to add a new student, we give the teacher options for the different accommodations that are available here. But if there's one that's not, that doesn't fit within one of these categories, and that's something your district needs, or hey, some districts will have kind of these hot button accommodations that, kind of word gets around that this accommodation is available and they'll add it. We're happy to be able to add that as we go through this process. And so we can really accommodate to be what your school or district needs, just as much as we know that what we've provided as kind of the baseline platform is national best practices, but we know we want to be able to help locally as well.
All right. Cool. I think it's good enough for now. And maybe you could stop sharing your screen and we'll just chat about a couple more things. Pretend I'm a fourth grader. That's about as high as my IQ goes anyways. And explain to me behind it, like under the hood, what's going on, right? Because we're going to get the, in this case, let's say an IEP, and you're going to load up the class, match it to the student. Okay, I get all that. But then, what's going on behind the scenes so that 10-second button press, it spits out those perfectly aligned accommodations.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've taken a lot of time and care to basically train our platform to look through a lesson plan or a test or an assignment. So when a teacher says, hey, I want to teach my fourth grade class this particular concept today. I've got some kids who don't speak English really well. I've got some kids who maybe they learn this on their own because they just really like the subject and they're way ahead. And other kids who are smart, but they just don't have the same toolbox that everybody else does. When you accommodate a lesson plan or a test or an assessment, the platform basically thinks about each kid in the class, about what they need to be able to learn more about this topic. And then says, hey, teacher, to teach Jimmy, I'm trying to go through my 1950s classroom stereotype names. To teach Jimmy this particular concept, he's going to need these tools. Here you go. And to teach, this other students this type of concept, he or she's going to need these tools. And here you go. And so the teacher no longer has to go and create those tools on their own. Accommodate gives them to them and allows them to be able to keep focusing on the curriculum, keep engaging with the kids, and not let those accommodations either fall to the wayside or get in the way of what that teacher is trying to accomplish in his or her classroom.
All right. Right on. Well, is there anything we missed in terms of accommodate that you want to bring into the conversation before I ask the last few questions?
Yeah, a couple quick features that we really like and that really helps with what I said earlier about this kind of being an insurance policy for being sued for this non-compliance that we talked about. One of them is our kind of two different forms of reporting that we provide. So we provide schools or districts monthly usage reports so that they know which teachers are using the accommodation platform. And so every teacher, when we bring on a district, every teacher gets a profile. And so everyone will have access and training on how to use it. And then we provide the school or district the usage reports, help them know which teachers actually are. And then the other thing that's also really helpful in particular, coming up to an IEP meeting, is we can also give usage reports based on each student. And so if in particular you need to say, yes, we are carrying this out, this is another arrow in the quiver for a school to say, across the year, your specific child, talking to the parent, has had their lessons or assessments accommodated this number of times in this number of classes and so on. And so the data that comes with this is really, really powerful for a district that just wants to kind of look in the mirror and say, like, how are we doing with this? Like, are we actually, for the plight of the special ed director who works her tail off to create a, really good plan and run the department and then just hopes that the general education teachers do it? It's an assessment of that compliance, but it's also then really good defense for lawsuits, contesting IEP fidelity and so on.
Wondering too if districts, might save a bit of money. I know special ed experts are hard to come by at times, and so I'm thinking about like the PD that's provided, or just like hidden non-compliance. It's invisible because it's not able to be facilitated within a system. But who's teaching the teachers to accommodate? And if you have this app and give the team perfectly designed IEPs, again, every teacher, let's say you hire Sam off the street, if you could teach him to remember a password and press a button, and in this, wild case, you've provided also Sam with a lesson plan. But the point is, it's easy. It's just really that easy is in terms of a click of a button. So
yeah, unfortunately, really, really qualified special education teachers are the pinch point. The way most schools are designed are the pinch point to implementing these. And I've worked with a ton of them. They're amazing, but there's only a few of them.
Yeah, right.
And
they're
they know
overwhelmed, overworked.
Yes, or maybe this is part of if they co-teach, this is the part of their task that they've got to do all these modifications of that, but there's only one or two teachers they can co-teach with. And so it really is, it seeks to duplicate the level of expertise that does exist in your buildings already, but you just can't do it the way we've always done it.
Right on. I think just for time, because we invested a good amount of time on the demo, which I think was a good use of time. We'll just jump to the last question. So we discussed a lot, Sam, today, and of everything we discussed, what's the one thing you want a ruckus maker to remember?
I'd like them to remember that this problem that we're talking about of hidden noncompliance and the solution of instructional integrity is easier than you think it is. It's something I think we've practiced avoiding over the years. And again, I'm at fault here as well. But I think the solution is simpler than the problem seems to a lot of us. And so I just encourage people to dig in and learn more about how they can bring yet another solution to their school or district that is not a big lift.
Not at all. And accessible, affordable. So when you're ready to bring instructional integrity to your campus or system, go to accommodate.live, click contact in the heading bar. That's right up there at the top right. And that will allow you just put your name and email, some very quick information, and the team will get a hold of you. So thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Danny.
Hey, Ruckus Maker, thanks again for pressing play. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. And before you go, if today's show shifted something in your mind or sparked an idea about how you could do school different, then I think you'd be a great fit for what we call the Ruckus Maker Mastermind. The Mastermind's a private community of innovative school leaders who meet weekly to grow, reflect, and disrupt the status quo. You can create the campus experience your staff and students deserve. Applications are now open, and go to betterleadersbetterschools.com/apply to put your application in.